Здравствуйте. I'm really sorry, but that's really all I got in Russian, so this presentation is going to be in English. Well, my name is Matouš, and I'm actually not a designer. I'm originally a writer and also a creative director nowadays. And yet, I'd like to tell you a bit about how you can improve and automate your design workflow. So why do I think I know something about design? Well, for the past 3 years, I've been working for Avocode, a design handoff tool for anyone who just needs to open or inspect pretty much any design file. And to give you an idea about what we do and why we believe it's right, I have to introduce you to our team. And let me start with a story about how we ourselves wanted to make our own lives a little easier. So please notice these 3 gentlemen in the middle. That's Martin, Vu, and Peter. And about 6 years ago, these guys used to have a digital agency. And I'm sure most of you know what such work entails, right? You get a client brief, you offer a solution in design, you maybe change the design slightly based on some feedback, and then you turn it into a real thing in code. And these guys just wanted to automate all of these tasks, make them slightly more efficient. So they were looking for some handy tools. And what do you do when you're looking for tools, especially as a designer? Well, I think there are actually 2 main areas you might be looking into. The first one is that you're looking for a tool to enable you to do something, to actually start working. For you guys, this enabling tool is your primary design tool, right? Without it, you cannot really work, can you? Well, for some it might be Sketch, for some it might be Adobe XD, Figma, for some maybe still Adobe Illustrator. Well, back in 2013, the weapon of choice of our team was still Photoshop. And trust me, this tool is many things, but being ready for UI design that should eventually be coded was never one of them. And yet, like a lot of you probably, our team has created a lot of user interfaces in this tool back in the day. Quite like this good old skeuomorphic design. However, creating a design file for the client, that was always the easy part. Most of the time was always burned on things like feedback. The client just wanted to change something again and again and again. If it was a bigger project, they had to work with other designers, sometimes even external contractors. And eventually, like I said, they had to turn the whole goddamn thing into code. Well, while it seems that these workflows, the efficiency of these workflows, is depending on each stakeholder in the process and how fast he communicates and delivers, most of these workflows actually can be automated. Which brings me to the second type of tools you're looking into when you're enhancing the tool stack for your business. And those are the tools that do something for you, that automate a part of your daily work. Well, back to our team. We always had more developers than designers. So obviously the part we suffered mostly from was how do we turn the Photoshop design to code. Vu, the guy in the middle, he's our current CEO, but back then he was a designer and he was searching for a way to automate this process of turning layers into code. So he wouldn't have to redline the design and add specs, to every single file. And one night in 2013, during a hackathon, these 3 guys, that's why I'm telling you about them, they decided to solve this pain. And the result was the first ever third-party Photoshop plugin, a CSS hat, which could turn multiple layers into neat CSS code, including CSS preprocessors, actually. Does anyone remember CSS hat? Cool, a few, yeah. Well, this thing actually made $9,000 within just the 24 hours after release. So apparently, the need to automate this workflow was huge. However, coding styles from one particular design file format was never enough, so our team has eventually built 12 more plugins, each designed to automate a part of our workflow. Things like layer optimization or cleaning layers in your file. So we were building plugins. But plugins, they're by nature dependent on design tools. And design tools update every now and then, right? They keep changing, keep adding features and so on. Well, if you don't want your plugin to break with every update, you have to dedicate a ton of time to maintenance. And plus, from a business point of view, it kind of makes more sense to build one powerful solution for teams instead of a series of smaller tools for individuals. So our team started working on something bigger, a tool called Avocode that could do much more than just turn layers into code. And so how did we build this thing? How did we approach building it? Well, quite like when you're searching for a tool. We started with some requirements, things that you need from the tool. So the first one for us was that it should be completely independent on design tools. If the only way to import a design file to your product is via a plugin, everyone using the product will be dependent on these design tools. And eventually, they will have to buy one. And that makes absolutely no sense for developers who they just want to open the file, inspect it, take a look at it. The second requirement was that it needed to be cross-platform and cross-format. And by that I mean that we needed to open various design file formats on all operating systems. Not just Mac, but Windows, Linux, and so on. And the third requirement was that it should save you guys, and our team as well, a lot of time. Specs, measurements, assets, they all should be automatically generated. Designers shouldn't be wasting time on manual tasks like exporting layers or preparing the file for handoff. I think you guys have actually much better stuff to do, right? Well, in 2015, we have shipped the first version of Avocode. It had one UI for Photoshop and Sketch files. However, it did not respond to all of our requirements yet. We are not really satisfied yet. A lot of work was still to be done. So let's fast forward to last year, spring 2018. It was after 3 years of thorough development that we were able to ship Avocode 3.0. And this product update finally fulfilled all of the requirements I told you about. Meaning you can add any design file format without design tools. So developers don't have to buy them anymore. It does work on Mac, Windows, Linux, and even in the browser. And it prepares everything for you. Assets, specs, it generates everything. And this is how our code looks like today. To give you an idea about how it works, I'd like to show you, 3 types of workflows. The 3 most common design workflows I've talked about previously. And that's feedback, design collaboration, and handoff. So let's start with feedback. Before you work on your file any further, or do you even think about coding it, what do you do? Of course, you want to know what other people think about the file, right? You're asking for feedback. That could be your team, that could be the client, anyone. So how can someone give you feedback via Avocode? Well, you simply send him a public link to the file. He can click through the prototype, go directly to any screen, and comment on point, like this. Okay, so in this case, the client wants us to change the button. He doesn't like the color, and we should change it. So as a designer, you've been notified about the change. It's up to you how you respond. What do you do? Is the client right or wrong? Well, this was your personal favorite project and you really like the color. So you decide to solve the comment without responding and say that the client is wrong. Well, that was a terrible, terrible idea. You should never do that. You just lost the client. So let's try again. Of course, the client is always right. You should know that. So, you'll reply, yes, sir. Of course, I'll change this design for you. Change is underway. So you quickly open the sketch file about to make this change. But that would be too easy. Let's put Avocode to a test. Let's think about some ridiculous scenario. Because life tends to be ridiculous sometimes. Let's say that you have an emergency. Your kid got into trouble at school. But the client needs the change today. So what do? It's your personal passion project. You really want to keep it to yourself. But do you leave your kid alone? Well, I think we all know what to do this time, right? Luckily, there's Yuri, very talented designer, who can help you out. So you simply go and save your kid and ask Yuri to help out. So luckily, Yuri has time. He's okay to help you, but he doesn't have the same file with your recent edits on his desktop. Well, if you were paying attention before, you know that all your files are securely kept in Avocode. So Yuri can just come in and download the file like this, open it up in Sketch, and search for those buttons. He's going to be editing the colors. Let's give him some time to do that. Actually pretty fast. All right, and once he's done, he can sync the file back to Avocode, and it's just added as a new version. Right? So now you see that there are two versions of the same file in Avocode, and he can simply go to the client's comments, and now he can resolve them without harm. And it seems the client likes it. How does he know that you changed the file? Well, he receives an automatic notification every time you resolve a comment or you update a file. It's very simple. I know this case scenario was slightly ridiculous, but you made it. The client is happy, and you just worked with another designer on the same file using Avocode. So now it seems that the file is ready to be coded. Before we proceed any further, let's have a look at how this would normally look like. So you would have to go layer by layer and export everything, right? In some cases, even in various resolutions, right? Right. Well, you don't have to prepare a single layer anymore. Avocode generates everything for you. I mean, sure, it does help if you group your layers and name them like a human being, but even if you don't, Avocode understands your file completely and generates everything for you. So you don't even have to send the file. It's already in Avocode, you just send a link. But again, reality strikes back. You say okay, but what if, I sent him the file the old-fashioned way, Slack or email, whatever. How can the developer open the file on his own without a design tool? Well, all he needs is a browser. He can simply take the file like this and basically drag and drop it to Avocode. It's really that simple. Once the design is complete, he can open it up and start inspecting. Because Avocode has a built-in technology that not only imports the file, but renders all of the layer contents with absolute accuracy. And by the way, this works for all major design formats, for Sketch, Figma, Photoshop, Illustrator, and XD. And what if there's a different scenario? What if you have your files on Dropbox. Well, then again, just sync the file. Sorry about that. You just sync the file from Dropbox, and if it's named the same way on your Dropbox, it will be simply added to Avocode as a new version. And while I said we're not big fans of plugins business-wise, of course we have a plugin for every, oh sorry, there's the upload, yeah. Select the file, sync it, it's pretty straightforward. And in terms of plugins, we do have one for every design tool. So you don't have to leave your favorite workspace just to hand off a few screens. You simply select the artboards, go to plugins, hit sync, add them to a project. It's totally up to you. Well, however you decide to deliver the file, there could be so many ways, right? The developer always gets an automatic notification in Slack, and he can simply click on the link and open up the file and start inspecting layer by layer. Unlike other solutions out there that import only screenshot, pre-exported assets and add some metadata on top of it, Avocode has a custom rendering technology that gives your entire team access to layers. And why do I keep talking about layers? Why is that so important? Well, because of image export, of course. I mean, do you remember the last time that you handed off some file and then suddenly the developer was like, okay, dude, you forgot this one icon. It should be a PNG and it should be for some reason 2x, yeah? A 2x resolution. So you have to switch your context, go back to this file, search for this icon, export it, send it to blah, blah, blah. That's terrible. With Avocode, you don't have to do that. The developer can export pretty much anything, any selection of layers. He's the one who's making your design responsive in code. So he should know best which asset needs to be exported and which he could simply style with some CSS, right? Well, a good example of an asset he really needs is this iPhone mockup. So he simply double-clicks on the layer, exports it. It's that simple. And there is way more. What if some part of the design should not be exported? Well, you can just hold the Shift key and multi-select any number of layers, and if some layer should not be part of the exported image, you basically hide it, and then export what you need. So here we have a selection of 4 layers. It's one icon, and we're exporting it as a PNG, right? So just to be safe, it's all sharp. We'll add another variant, and hit export. 2 assets, simple. And what if the developer is making a responsive design that's actually wider than what you have designed in Sketch, for example? What if there are some parts of the design, like over there, that are overlapping the artboard area, and at some point, the screen is actually wider than the design? Well, if an image is overlapping the artboard area, you can again take it like this, and in the preview you see it's all there. You can select those layers, export them as a vector shape or a bitmap. It's totally up to you. And last but not least, what if you need to batch export some assets? What if you need, let's say, a set of social icons. So those are going to be probably vector shapes, some SVGs. And you need them named uniquely, but in one location. The developer needs them in one particular folder. Well, it could not be easier. You just select those layers, hit export, uncheck this little box to export them separately, choose SVG, and name them. Name them Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, whatever. And once you hit export, they will be all downloaded to one location. And there's more that developers are doing than just placing assets around the coded result, right? They're obviously styling the website. And we think that manually styling with CSS is terrible work, you know. Most developers don't like it. They like the interactive stuff, the more advanced stuff, the stuff that challenges them. But styling the website is not that much fun. So with Avocode, they can simply click on the canvas and everything is automatically generated in code for them. For example, you know, this layer, this box, you get all the CSS code over there on the left. And if they're working on different screen designs, like mobile apps, for example, you can choose from actually 10 different code languages. So there's Swift, of course, there's Android, React Native, whatever you like. And if that's not enough, Avocode is the only tool out there that has very advanced options to customize the code. Well, in terms of styling, we were thinking about how could we make it even more automated, more faster. So Avocode actually shows you what layers are sharing the same style, like this headline, for example. You know, once you export the code from this headline, you have the font family, the width, the weight, and you can simply style an element that is repeating across the design file. And of course, the developer needs to position everything in the design just as beautiful as you guys made it. So thanks to our multi-select feature, he can simply measure sizes and distances not just between two layers, but any selection of them. Well, this is simply to give you an idea of what the three most common workflows can look like with Avocode. How it can help clients, designers, and developers automate parts of their daily work. It doesn't really matter which tool you prefer. Avocode works with them all. And it doesn't matter what machines are your colleagues running, you know. They really need just a browser, actually. Before I wrap up, there are two more things that I'd like to tell you. There are two more workflows we'd like to solve in the future. Well, the first one is even better designer-to-designer collaboration, and in particular, we're interested in the part that's called version control. I'm sure you guys know what that means. Well, already today, Avocode actually stores an unlimited file version history. That's something even Adobe or Dropbox cannot compete with because they store only the last 30 days of your files. So you can go and download any version down the road. That goes for your entire team. And whenever there's a new design version in Avocode, you can see how many artworks have been changed, removed, or added. Soon you'll be able to describe those changes, and not just for the latest version, but to any version down the road. And up next, we're planning actual version control, something like Git or Abstract, but not just for Sketch. I already told you we support all formats out there. So imagine version control for many different file formats. Basically, when designers import a file, with the same file with different content, one admin would be able to choose which version is final to resolve the conflict. And the second workflow we're heavily looking into are, of course, design systems. Since thousands of companies already store their design files in Avocode, we'd like to give them a chance to, document their system of components. And the next challenge is, where's the truth? Is it in design or is it in code? So many people argue about this. Well, maybe it should be in both. We're thinking about a technology that could read and write in both design and code, so you could sync it all together. So stay tuned, it's coming. And already today, Avocode is a tool that can do a lot of work for you. As your tasks become more complex, we want to keep making your life easier. And why do we care? Well, because we personally know how important it is for any business to automate as much of your work as you can. If you're curious how much time Avocode can save you, simply add a design and see for yourself. It's really that simple. And speaking of making things easier, I actually wanted to give you something special today. So while normally we have a 14 days free trial, I thought, why not give you more? Why not give you guys 3 months completely for free? I actually had to go talk to our head of marketing about this, but eventually he agreed. And yeah, so if you use it until the end of next month, you get 3 months of subscription completely for free. So you guys can play with it, see if it helps you. If it does, please tell us how. If it doesn't, tell us as well. We'd like to know and improve. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's connect. And if you have any questions whatsoever, I'll do my best to answer them. I actually have 2 t-shirts for the 2 first questions.
Hey, thanks, Matouš. And у кого-нибудь есть вопросы на английском?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation.
You're welcome.
I don't have any questions because I haven't tried the product yet, but if you will help us resolve the problem of developers harassing, like, where the hell is my icon? I'll be your client forever, really. Thank you so much.
Means a lot. Thank you. Well, basically, you know, we're trying to add as many features as we can for developers and designers out there. So if you guys have any requests or types of workflows that I didn't cover in my presentation, feel free to let me know about your particular workflow. How do you share the design file? How do you, keep the structure of your file? If you're unsure if it works in Avocode, I assure you it will work, but feel free to try. Yeah. Any other questions?
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you. My question, when Avocode better than Zeppelin?
Sorry?
Why? Why Avocode better than Zeppelin?
Sorry, I didn't get the question. Could someone help me out here?
I just want to repeat his question. He's asking, why do you think Avocode is better than Zeppelin?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think I covered most of it, but actually, we don't want to be depending on design tools. So with Zeppelin, you really have only one way to import a file. You need to sync it from the design tool, which covers only one workflow, a linear one, when the designer is handing of the file, but the file could be living elsewhere, and there are so many other ways how the file gets to the developer, and we want to give him the flexibility to open the file without design tools. Also, there are more features for developers, definitely, like just try our code customization. And then there's the whole technology thing. We have a custom rendering engine that renders the file just like Figma renders your file, or like Sketch does. We really do understand the structure of the file format, and we want to give you the flexibility to multi-select layers, to hide layers, and so on. And this thing is simply not technologically possible in other solutions that are not rendering the file, because what they're doing is actually asking you to pre-export everything, then sync it. And if you don't mark your layers as exportable, those tools will never be able to take them from the file. So that's probably another difference. I hope that answers your question.
Hello, I have a question as well. And first of all, I really want to thank you for this presentation. I really enjoyed it, and I really wish you the best of luck in this hard task. But my question is, what kind of features are you planning to ship soon, and what kind of features you personally want to see in your product?
Okay, so quite honestly, we do realize that our product has been built for developers first. So the inspect mode was, the first core environment of the product. But we have and want to keep doing that. We have added a lot of features for designers as well, like the collaboration on files I showed you, version history, version control, feedback, annotating the design for the developer so he would understand maybe if there should be some special things like how to adjust this thing on a particular resolution, so that can all be done in the comment mode. And personally, I'd really like to see more features for designers. I believe that version control is still not solved across design files, and we're working hard to make it right. Yeah, so it's definitely features for designers. Personally,
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes,
Hi.
please.
Hello. Thank you for the presentation.
Okay.
I have a question. Yeah, I'm here. How do you imagine a workflow or designer working together with developers on a responsive design? Should they make separate files or something else in Avocode?
That's a very good question. So, if you're making a responsive design, you're usually starting with a desktop version, then you're adding a mobile version maybe. But in some cases, what the tools have enabled us is smart constraints and making the design responsive already in the design tool. And I think the best case scenario is actually talk to a developer to understand how he starts coding the design. There's always one resolution he picks as the default. Usually it's the desktop one. And then he adds basically multiple functions to make the thing responsive. And so I think you might be even wasting a lot of time if you're making the file nicely responsive in the design, and yet the developer doesn't take advantage of what you prepared. So I would probably advise to start with one resolution and ask the developer how does he actually get to the other screen types. And then you could, for example, add a behavior when there's elements, going down or being hidden. You could probably add that as another artboard in the file. I guess that's what I would do, but if anyone has better ideas, we can talk later about that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello.
Any more questions?
My question is about real-time design. As we know,
I don't see,
Sketch.
sorry. Yeah. Okay.
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Sorry, man. You're late.
As you know, Sketch is struggling without real-time collaboration. And while Figma rises, as it has this function, how do you suppose to compete with Figma when you're not a design platform? And Sketch and Zeppelin or Sketch or Avocode collaboration conjunction is dead.
Sorry, what's the question?
How do you suppose to compete with Figma?
Yeah, I mean, Figma's awesome. We're big fans of Figma. We support Figma. And I think what they did very well was the bet on real-time collaboration on the web. That's how they actually surpassed Sketch. And I believe their main competitor actually is not Sketch, but it's XD, which is, by the way, preparing the same thing. They're also working on real-time collaboration in the future. And it's not about competing, I think, actually, because all these new tools that are coming to the space, they're just validating the space. It actually means that we're in a good space, that there's a lot of innovation going on, and I believe we can learn from each other, And since we have such a variety of design tools nowadays, and they are all pretty good at something, and yet very similar, it seems that there will not be one singular tool like back in the day when everything was done in Photoshop, maybe Illustrator in terms of UI, but nowadays there's this variety of tools which shows you that there's enough space to be competitive, you know, and our part in this whole design world actually is probably the thing I mentioned in the beginning of my presentation, that our tool is cross-platform and cross-format. You know, we have teams that are using Avocode that are using multiple design formats. They have a design team using Figma, and they have a design team using XD. And thanks to Avocode, they can have all the design files in one place. So, yeah, I hope that answers at least a part of your question.
Okay. Hi, and
Hi.
thank you. You haven't said anything about Avocode design converter tool. And what are you going to do with this project? Will you just close it or will develop?
So that was a fun project. We are trying to, for those who don't know, we have a free tool that's called Photoshop to Sketch Converter. Basically, we can take any Photoshop file and turn it into Sketch. I think it's still in beta actually because we didn't have time to develop it any further. It was more like to proof of concept, if you will. And yeah, I mean, this is a speculation, right? But if we see the need for other conversions, I don't know what would make sense. Yeah, for example, like from Figma to Sketch, or I don't know, then we might consider adding them. And eventually, I'd love to see a feature that you can add any design file format to Avocode, and you can download it as any file format. That's like the long-term vision, I believe. So thank you guys a lot for your attention, and hope to chat later. You're welcome. Okay, thank you.